Good morning. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Larry. Glad to have you. What's the best kept secret in senior living options? Senior living options. Now, there's some good videos on YouTube about different options that seniors have, but I've never heard anybody talk about this. Maybe I've missed it, but I only like to talk about things I have some personal experience with, and this is one of them. No, I do not live in a senior housing, but I have worked in a lot of them, and today that's what I'm going to talk about. There's lots of options, very expensive options, I might add. There's even whole subdivisions and acres and miles in Florida. It's called the Villages. I've watched a couple videos on that. I don't think I'd want to live there, but some people might, and that's fine. But there are other options that just aren't talked about that much, and that's apartment senior housing, apartments. One of the biggest pluses of apartment senior living is the money. They usually charge less. If you're hurting financially, there are some subsidies that are available, and I think that's great. So I did a little bit of checking in my area. Yeah, there's a couple places that are local that are literally half the rent of a regular complex, and but that's definitely one of the big pluses. Some of the other pros of senior living apartments is they're all single level. No matter where you go, they're all single level. You won't find townhouses. You won't find places with basements. Another thing I noticed that they have wide hallways. My experience is with a 7-story high-rise senior living. It had about, I think it had 120, 130 units. One of the properties that we worked on in my contracting business. We were there probably twice a week, but we did all the drywall repairs, all the painting, turnover paints, and so I got to be pretty familiar with senior housing and the good and the bad with it. But one of the big things was wide hallways, because you have people on walkers, you have people in wheelchairs. They went up and down escalators, that's fine, but the hallways were a little larger than normal, and these weren't just little short hallways. I guess each hallway was probably 40, 50 yards, and they had 2 of them on each floor. Went 2 different directions, and it was it made for some interesting times. Sometimes when we were working in the hallway, and we'd have drop claws out and all that good stuff, and here comes somebody in a walker, and we had to just stop what we were doing and move stuff out of their way and help them through. But that was on me. But for them, it made it really nice because they can get a grocery cart through there. There's a grocery store across the street. They can bring a grocery cart in there and wheel right up to their door. And that was really good. There's a lot of safety features in senior living apartments. At this particular place, it was really good because they had 24/7 security. They had the lock on the front door, the main door. It got locked permanently about 10 o'clock. In fact, there were a few times, if I didn't have a key at the building, I wouldn't have got in, because sometimes I went in and started at 6 or 6:30 on a vacant unit to do some stuff, and I didn't make any noise at that time. But if I wanted to get started, I had a key for the building, and I had security clearance. So that's one good. There's just a lot of security, and somebody's always watching out. In a senior building, you always have 2 or 3 people are sitting around all the time. They know the comings and goings of everybody, just like any other community. But these are all seniors. Biggest plus of senior living apartments is there's absolutely no maintenance whatsoever. Your faucet's leaking, guess what? You call one of the maintenance people. If your toilet stops up, you call a maintenance person. You don't ever have to worry about maintenance on a senior living building, and people really like that. Another big plus of senior apartments is there's a lot of social gatherings. Now, the one I was at, they had tons. I mean, at least once a week, they'd have a social gathering sometimes. Sometimes it was ice cream social, sometimes it was tea and biscuits or whatever, but they had something every week for the seniors. Now, most senior communities, I don't know about all of them, but from what I've read and from what I've experienced, it's mostly singles, but there are some couples that do it. And but there's all kinds of social things. It gives you a sense of community. Uh, you know that others just like you are close by. They're right there. They're right there. You get to know your neighbors. You get to know the property people, the maintenance people, the property manager. You get to know everybody. So there's there's others just like you. And I saw a lot of really good friendships. In fact, I was there so often, I knew 7 or 8 of them by first name basis, and they knew me too, because we get to talking when I was working in their apartment or something, and we get to talking. And but there is a sense of community there. The security aspects of it, absolutely, they like that. They really like that. Deadbolts, like that. There were a few times I had trouble getting in because there's only one way in and one way out of these apartments. That's through the front door. So they made sure they had really good security bolts on the front door. Of course, it's a high-rise, so nobody's coming in through the windows unless you're on the ground floor, and those are all commercial spaces anyway. One big plus is a lot of people really like this. It's quiet. I mean, it's quiet. You can go there in the middle of the day on a Friday, and it is quiet. There's no kids around. There's no teenagers around. In fact, if I ever saw a child or a teenager, I knew something was up. And it wasn't a bad thing. It's just they were visiting or whatever, but you could hear them, and that's fine. But that goes into one of the negatives about it. There are certain rules in most of these communities. I'm only familiar with the one, and this was a no pet building. There was no pets allowed, no cats, no small dogs, no nothing. I think there were birds allowed, but I think that's it. I do remember seeing some birds in some of the apartments, so that's one of the negative. Also, one of the negatives, you can have visitors anytime you want to. They don't have to check in or anything. They can walk right in the front door during normal hours. However, there are no visitors after a certain time. I think it was 10 o'clock at this particular building. I think it was 10 o'clock. You weren't getting in, period. I mean, you just weren't coming in, period. And they did that for the rules, but it's security. Those under 55 could not live there. So everybody there was older. There was a lot of retired school teachers there. There's several retired business people there. Now, there are some exceptions. One of the maintenance men at the time had a small daughter, and I'll tell you what, talk about getting attention. She got some attention because there just weren't any kids around, and everybody there just loved her, just absolutely loved her. And but that is one of the negatives. Not just anybody can live there, and that was an exception because he actually worked there. But that's probably the biggest drawback to all this is you are isolated. You're with the old folks. You're isolated on a daily basis from the younger people. You're just never around young people unless you go out to do them. And most of these places, they're in bus line if you need to go to the store. Like I said, on this particular one, there's a grocery store and a lot of shops right across the street. So it was all good. A lot of people really enjoyed it. A lot of people really loved living there. And the property manager was fantastic. Administratively, she wasn't the best. She really wasn't. I wouldn't say she was incompetent or anything like that. She just wasn't that great of an administrator. However, she was older herself. She was probably 60 at the time. And she just loved everybody. She loved on people, and she knew everybody on a first name basis, and she was perfect for that property. Another property, maybe not so much, but for that particular property, definitely so. So if you're looking to save money for housing, we're not talking about one of these fancy pants places where they charge you $8,000 or $10,000 a month. We're not talking about something that's really low class. We're talking about average apartments, and they are pretty much average apartments. There's a lot of discounts out there if you look a little bit. So just an option. I don't plan on ever investigating this, but maybe some of you might. And if you know somebody this might apply to, share it with them. If you get anything out of this video at all, like, share, subscribe. Until we meet again, I'm going to press on towards that goal.